Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into one of neuroscience's most haunting, honestly kind of mind-bending mysteries, that uncanny resemblance between psychedelic trips and near-death experiences. We're going to strip away the folklore and look strictly at the hard data. Does the brain actually flood itself with psychedelics right at the very end of life? Let's find out.
Section 1. A trip like dying. The threshold of consciousness.
So, does the brain release DMT when you die? It's a super provocative question, right? It's captivated believers and skeptics for decades. Is a near-death experience literally just a sudden massive flood of endogenous psychedelics? We've all heard the stories. The tunnel, the bright white light, that feeling of overwhelming peace. But what does the science actually say about this?
Well, when you directly compare the subjective, lived experience of a strong intravenous DMT trip with the accounts of people who have survived cardiac arrest, the similarities they're honestly striking. In both cases, the physical body just seems to fall away. You enter these luminous, unearthly realms, you feel this incredibly deep peace, and you often even encounter presences. It really makes you wonder, are these people experiencing the exact same biological event?
Section 2. Measuring the Uncanny. The 2018 Imperial College Study.
Now, 13 is a central number in our investigation today. See, for a century, this overlap between psychedelics and dying was just anecdotal, just stories, until researchers at Imperial College London decided to play detective and actually measure it. In this deceptively simple study, they gave 13 healthy volunteers intravenous DMT. And astonishingly, every single one of those 13 people scored above the clinical threshold for a real near-death experience on standard medical questionnaires.
When they were scored on the Greyson near-death experience scale, both the DMT group and folks from a coma registry reported crazy high levels of cosmic unity, unearthly realms, and out-of-body experiences. Statistically speaking, on 15 of the 16 features on that scale, the DMT trip was completely indistinguishable from the vivid memories of people who genuinely flatlined, some of them up to 15 years earlier. The absolute only distinct difference, reaching a point of no return, which, makes total sense, because the DMT volunteers knew they were safely sitting in a laboratory.
But we really got to remember a crucial detail here. Genuine near-death experiences happen with absolutely no drugs involved whatsoever. A landmark 2001 study showed that about 18% of cardiac arrest survivors report having an NDE. And that right there is exactly the mysterious vacuum that the DMT theory rushed in to fill. Think about it. If people aren't taking drugs, is their brain literally making its own?
Section 3. The Spirit Molecule Myth. Descartes' Seat of the Soul. So, psychiatrist Rick Strassman famously hypothesized that the pineal gland secretes DMT at birth, in dreams, and in death, opening a chemical door between worlds. And wow, it is undeniably a beautiful, deeply poetic story. But is rigorous science? At the time of his 2001 hypothesis, it was pure speculation. There was absolutely zero evidence of human pineal glands releasing DMT in psychoactive amounts.
But the story didn't end there. Recent biochemistry from a fascinating 2019 study shows that the mammalian brain actually can make its own DMT. They found the synthesizing enzyme in multiple brain regions, extracellular DMT reaches serotonin-like levels, and, incredibly, DMT surges in the visual cortex after experimental cardiac arrest. But here is the real kicker. It surges even with the pineal gland completely removed. The capacity to make DMT isn't just in one gland, it's woven right into the tissue of the brain itself.
Okay, wait, I must emphasize a major caveat here, just to keep our investigation completely honest. This is rodent data. We're talking about rat brains, not human evidence. While it proves a rat brain can release DMT during cardiac arrest, that scientific bridge proving endogenous DMT reaches psychoactive levels in humans and actually causes our near-death experiences, that bridge simply hasn't been built yet. It's a superb lead, absolutely, but it's not a final verdict.
Section 4. When the brain flares. The electrical crescendo of dying.
If we don't necessarily need some exotic death chemical to explain these powerful visions, we need to look at our next big clue. What is happening electrically? At 0 seconds, the exact moment of cardiac arrest, the heart stops. But the brain doesn't just switch off immediately like a light bulb. At around 30 seconds, there is this transient, massive surge of highly synchronized gamma wave activity before the EEG goes totally flat. During this brief little window, the dying brain actually becomes more connected and more coherent than an ordinary waking life. Gamma waves are tightly associated with vivid conscious perception, which means the dying brain might be orchestrating its own profound experience using electricity alone.
And hey, it's not just rats. In a 2023 study, we saw the very first human hints of this electrical flare. When researchers monitored 4 comatose patients as life support was withdrawn, 2 of them showed a strikingly similar gamma surge in the cortex's posterior hot zone, which is the brain area tightly tied to conscious content. It strongly suggests the dying human brain flares brilliantly right before it fades away, offering a completely drug-free route to a vivid final experience.
Section 5. Different doors, same room. The ketamine twist.
Now this next finding is a massive curveball. A vast 2019 text analysis study examined 15,000 written drug reports. And they found that out of 165 psychoactive substances, ketamine reports were actually the most semantically similar to genuine near-death experiences. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Ketamine was even more similar to an NDE than DMT was. Crazy, right? Pharmacologically, this creates a fascinating different doors, same room scenario. See, DMT works by stimulating serotonin receptors. Ketamine, on the other hand, works by completely blocking glutamate receptors. You have 2 entirely opposite pharmacological mechanisms, and yet they lead to the exact same strange, phenomenological outcome. It really implies that hunting for one specific death chemical might just be the wrong approach altogether.
Section 6. The honest answer. The architecture of consciousness.
So here is exactly where the science currently stands. It is an established fact that DMT trips map almost perfectly onto NDEs. It's also an established fact that mammalian brains produce DMT, and they surge with electrical activity at death. But major questions remain wide open. Does the human brain release psychoactive amounts? And is that chemistry the actual cause, or is it just a biological correlate sort of riding alongside the experience? We have a truly spectacular set of clues, but still no definitive proof.
And this brings us to a really compelling theory known as the architecture of consciousness. This suggests that the self-modeling brain, when it's pushed past a certain edge by literally any means, whether that's DMT, ketamine, or simply the oxygen loss during dying, defaults to the exact same profound family of experiences. The dissolving sense of self, that intense light, the overwhelming peace. They might simply be the fundamental blueprints of our consciousness kicking in when the ordinary systems start to shut down.
Ultimately, we're left with a profound question. Is this a glimpse of something real, like a window to something beyond? Or is it just the mind's last most beautiful act of meaning-making as the lights go down? Neuroscience hasn't given us the final answer yet. It simply taught us how to precisely ask the question. I hope this explainer has given you the tools to ponder it yourself. Thanks for joining me on this one, and stay curious.